expect everyone to enjoy watching all of the movies that I love, and I often encounter many people who express a dislike for a movie that I really find to be inspiring and important. First, I should say this isn't a criticism of anyone or any of the movies that they like or don't like. It's perfectly legitimate to like or dislike any piece of art. Art is subjective. However, I do love art films, and I think there is a value in them. And just like someone who says they don't like reading can learn to love books, I think that people who say they don't like art films can learn to love and appreciate more challenging types of cinema. Personally, I think there are one of two reasons why someone doesn't appreciate or like art movies. The first, they're boring. You know, it's no secret that art films are often slower paced and less of a spectacle than your standard commercial film. And so it makes sense that not as many people can get into art cinema. And that's the distinction, is commercial is for more people. Something being boring as well is a very legitimate reason not to like a film. I mean, films are entertainment. It's supposed to be entertaining. So why would you want to sit down for hours and watch a scene like this? Nothing happened, right? Technically a lot happens. She moves the balls, the camera pans, and my favorite detail in the scene is the way in which the boy on the bike rides past before riding back again. You can understand from this really small action this kind of feeling of nervousness that this person has. Reminds me of times when I was nervous to go somewhere, maybe for a first date or for a job interview, where I walked by the building, I checked it out a little bit, maybe went and get coffee, came back. With this small action in this film, because the film is slower paced, you're able to pick out more, you're able to notice more. I don't think that this action of this guy walking back and forth is something I would have noticed if there were 15 cuts or a computer-generated robot in the scene. It's specifically the slowness that allows a careful attention to detail. But you have to be willing to expend that attention to get something out of it. The detail that I fixate on when watching a scene might not be the detail that you fixate on when you watch a scene. But if you pay attention to detail, you give your mind a little chance to breathe, sit, examine, contemplate what you're watching. What you discover and what you find might surprise you. And I think if there's a value in this slower pace, more expressive, more cerebral type of cinema, it's this. It's allowing time for contemplation of the audience. Our attention spans have been ruined by phones and algorithms that just give us whatever we want as soon as an ounce of boredom seeps in. Even I find myself reaching for a phone when I watch one of these slower movies. And when I find myself doing that, I take it as a sign that my mind is becoming a little bit weak. For me, art films are a bit like physical therapy for your brain. You know, you could meditate to help your brain, you could read James Joyce, you can do the Sunday crossword, you could play chess with somebody better than you. These are all great activities for your mind, but the barrier to entry is a little high. Watching an art film, to me, it's a way to get your mind used to sitting and focusing, still allowing it to relax and feel like it's doing something a little bit fun. You might be saying to yourself, I don't find it fun, it's boring to me. You know, I don't want to put effort into my relaxation. If I'm going to relax, I might as well indulge in something that I really enjoy. I might as well watch a Marvel movie or a comedy or something stupid. I hear people say this a lot. They say, well, when I watch TV, I just want to not think about anything and chill out and do whatever. To me, it's a little bit like saying, well, when I want to eat, I just want to eat candy. You know, I like candy. I don't really like vegetables. So if I'm going to eat food, I should eat candy all the time. Well, you can't eat candy for every meal. You know, we need entertainment, we need fun, but how we choose to spend that time can be a little important. We can indulge in something that's bad for us, or we can eat our vegetables and strengthen our minds while we do something that's entertaining. I really do believe that in many ways, a film like a Marvel film often use the spectacle to pull the viewer around in a way that is bad for us. They take away our ability to actively watch a film, shoves everything it wants to show us directly into our faces because it doesn't trust us to pick up on things on our own. This type of viewing is passive, in my opinion. It ends up rendering the mental side of viewing a film meaningless. It makes the viewer less and less willing to bring their own thoughts, ideas, and experiences into the art they view. And if a film takes any effort to try to understand, your brain gets bored and it reaches for the phone. Allowing ourselves to actively pay attention to details rather than being pushed around like a little dog in a baby stroller by the filmmaker allows so much more to be communicated through the art that we view. Nuanced, complex ideas are only possible in film when the audience is willing to mull over those ideas, take time, think about them, rinse them, allow them to rise like yeast in your brain. When I watch a really great film, I think about it for days. I think about what the filmmaker was trying to say, how they use technique to convey that idea to me, how it relates to my own life, or how it relates to society as a whole. When I watch a spectacle, something like a Marvel film, while it can be enjoyable and they can be good movies and they can have interesting ideas in them, a lot of the times something like this just kind of washes over me and it leaves me a little bit empty, searching for more entertainment to fill this void in my increasingly empty head. Sounds a little harsh, but ultimately it's kind of how I feel. And if you disagree, that's fine, let me know. Number 2, they don't make sense. Second complaint, one that's a little bit harder to overcome, is that art films are confusing, don't make sense. Again, this is a very valid complaint. After all, if a filmmaker didn't adequately express his ideas and communicate his message or his story to you, it can't be a good movie, right? If a movie doesn't make sense, that's the fault of the director, right? Well, sometimes that's true. Bad filmmaking is riddled with examples of confusing stories, shots that don't make sense, editing that's weird, plot holes. But sometimes something doesn't make sense, and it's your fault. And I say this respectfully. You are not obligated to put energy and effort into trying to understand what a filmmaker is saying to you. If it doesn't connect to you, that is fair, and you don't need to like that. But doesn't mean it's not your fault. For certain types of storytelling and certain types of filmmaking, the filmmaker is trusting that you're going to be putting a little bit of energy and a little bit of effort into the viewing experience. This goes back to the concept that I was talking about of active viewing. When presenting a scene that is metaphorical or abstract, the filmmaker is putting a little bit of trust in you as the viewer, that you're going to bring your own thoughts and your own understandings of the world into this viewing experience, that you're going to participate in the art. Many art films are experimenting with storytelling and narrative form, and it takes a little bit of energy to decipher. It's rewarding when you trust the director that he isn't just showing you random nonsense and that he's trying to tell you something. It's rewarding when that comes back and you do end up kind of feeling like you learned something or feeling like, well, that was satisfying. I'm glad that I focused on this weird film. I'll even admit, first time I watched David Lynch's Mulholland Drive, I didn't like it. I thought it was overhyped, it was pretentious, it was something like film lovers and film buffs and film students pretended to like but didn't actually understand, and that Lynch was just trying hard to put up nonsense and he didn't even know what he was trying to say. When I got a little older and I actively rewatched the film and I mapped my meaning and my experiences onto the film, this story of intense longing and lost potential revealed itself to me. I love that film now. I consider it to be more memorable than many of the more conventional films that I've seen. I put energy into developing my interpretation of what I think this film is about and what it means. I engaged with David Lynch by watching that film, and it's a really cool experience. As I go through this rant, I can totally understand not wanting to do this though. You don't want to spend your time looking at clouds and trying to find what the meaning is in these random cloud formations. That's why not all art films are created equal. There are bad art films. There are films that don't really mean anything and the person never really thought about what they were doing. But if we can recognize the thought and effort and energy were put into a piece of art, that the choices that the director made were not meaningless, we can reasonably assume that we're in good hands. And if we try to understand what's being presented to us, we're gonna start exploring interesting ideas when we watch this. And it doesn't even really matter if what we discover is exactly what the screenwriter or the director intended. Art appreciation is a two-way street. We interact with the art we consume. Our experiences, our understanding of the world map onto the work. I once went to a screening of the film Schenectady, New York by Charlie Kaufman, which is a very strange movie. Kaufman spoke at the end, and someone in the crowd asked him what the film meant. Kaufman said he wasn't there to tell us what the film meant, that the film means something if it speaks to you. So what you get out of it is what it means. He was encouraging this idea of active watching. And the audience member got pretty upset by this. He followed up by saying, well, you had something in mind, why didn't you just tell us what it is? Why are you being like that? And Kaufman said, listen, if it means nothing to you, that's okay. If it didn't speak to your experiences, that's fine. But I don't want to taint other people in the audience's interpretation of this movie and what they learned and what they got out of it by telling them what it really means. And I thought that was a really interesting way to put it. I think it's more important to be able to interpret films for ourselves when we watch them. It's a part of the experience. I have a series on this channel where I explain films. The point for me when I make those videos isn't to tell you what the films really mean, because obviously I don't know. I'm not the director, I'm not the writer. What I want to do is encourage active watching, give my interpretation of the details, hopefully encourage other people to pay attention to the details of the films that they watch, consider that there may be more to the film than what's being immediately fed to you or immediately shown to you. Something I actually really love is when people tell me their different interpretations of the films that I explain. I just like to see that this person has a different way of seeing a movie, and they've took the time to try to interpret art as they view it. So if audiences are willing to do that, then perhaps artists will be willing to take more chances, and we'll get more interesting pieces of art to consider, contemplate, and enjoy. Thanks for watching. If you want me to cover any interesting topics about movies, film, foreign cinema, let me know in the comments. See you next time. Bye-bye.